Before we get to the incredible twist that left me speechless, before the private jets and the lawyers and the life-changing revelation that would rewrite all of their futures, you need to understand where this story begins. It starts not with wealth, but with a storm. And with a simple, desperate knock on a door. If you've ever felt like life has kicked you down, if you've ever needed a reminder that kindness can be its own reward, then you need to hear this story. So get comfortable, and I promise, by the end, you'll be feeling all the feels. And hey, if you're moved by stories of resilience and hope, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of hopeful hearts. The rain was lashing against Ben's window pane, a relentless, angry drumming that mirrored the storm still rumbling in his own heart, even 2 years after he'd lost Sarah. The small, cluttered but warm house felt too big and too quiet with just him and his 7-year-old daughter, Chloe. He was tucking her in, reading a worn copy of The Hobbit, when a sound, faint and foreign, cut through the downpour. Not the wind, a knock. Frowning, he padded to the front door and pulled it open. The sight on his porch stole the air from his lungs. A woman, drenched and shivering, huddled against the cold. One eye was swollen shut, a violent purple bloom against her pale skin. Huddled into her side was a small boy, maybe a year older than Chloe, his face pale and frightened, clutching a tattered backpack. The woman's eyes, the one that wasn't swollen, held a depth of shame and desperation that made Ben's chest ache. "Please," she whispered, her voice raw. "My car, it broke down a mile back. We have nowhere," she trailed off, her gaze dropping to the worn welcome mat. Ben didn't hesitate. "Come in. Please, come in out of the cold." He ushered them into the warmth, his firefighter instincts kicking in. He fetched towels, made hot chocolate, and sat them by the fireplace. The woman, whose name was Maya, spoke in broken fragments. Her in-laws. After her husband, their son, had died in a car accident 6 months ago, they'd blamed her. The abuse had escalated until tonight, when they'd thrown her and her son, Leo, out onto the street with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a single bag. Ben looked at Leo, a quiet, serious boy who hadn't spoken a word. He saw the way the boy protectively held his mother's hand, the old soul wisdom in his eyes that no child should possess. And he looked at Chloe, who had crept down the stairs and was now offering her favorite stuffed bear to Leo. In that moment, Ben's own grief was overshadowed by a fierce, protective need. "You'll stay here," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "For as long as you need." The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of healing. Maya, once the initial terror subsided, revealed a gentle, artistic soul, helping Chloe with her drawings and slowly, painstakingly, beginning to smile again. Leo remained quiet, but he and Chloe became inseparable, a silent pact of friendship built on shared Lego towers and whispered secrets. Ben watched his daughter blossom with a maternal figure in her life, and he felt a piece of his own shattered heart begin to knit back together whenever Maya laughed. They were a patchwork family, stitched together by trauma and kindness, and it was starting to feel whole. But the outside world hadn't disappeared. Maya's former in-laws, the Carlyles, were a powerful, old money family from the city. They started with threatening phone calls, demanding Leo, their rightful heir. They sent lawyers' letters to Ben's modest home, accusing Maya of being an unfit mother and Ben of harboring a fugitive. The pressure was immense. Ben, a mechanic with a modest income, felt the weight of their wealth and influence. He spent sleepless nights worrying, not for himself, but for the fragile safety he'd built for Maya, Leo, and Chloe. One afternoon, a sleek, black sedan pulled up. A severe-looking woman in a sharp pantsuit emerged. Maya froze, her face a mask of pure fear. "It's Eleanor Carlyle's personal lawyer," she whispered. Ben stepped forward, putting himself between the lawyer and his family. But the lawyer didn't serve papers. Instead, she looked past Ben, directly at Leo. "Leo," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "My name is Ms. Davina. I was your father's lawyer." His real father. Confusion filled the room. Leo's father was Michael Carlyle, wasn't he? Maya looked just as bewildered. "Ms. Davina explained, her words dropping like stones into the quiet living room. Maya's late husband, Michael, was not Leo's biological father. Years before she met Michael, Maya had a brief, intense relationship with a man named Elias Thorne. Elias Thorne was a reclusive tech billionaire. Their affair ended amicably, but Maya never knew she was pregnant. She'd assumed Leo was Michael's. Elias Thorne had only recently discovered he had a son. A private investigator had tracked them to the Carlyles, and then to Ben's door. Leo, the quiet, beaten-down boy clutching his mother's leg, was the sole heir to the Thorne fortune. He was a billionaire. The revelation was a seismic shock. The Carlyles, upon hearing the news, retreated immediately, their claims evaporating in the face of a legal and financial power they couldn't hope to challenge. But the real challenge was internal. Maya was reeling from the truth about Leo's paternity. Ben felt anew, unspoken fear, that this newfound wealth would sweep away the simple, loving family they had built. What use was his protection, his small, loving home, against the pull of a billion-dollar legacy? The resolution came from the most unexpected place, Leo. For the first time, he spoke with a clarity that belied his age. Elias Thorne, through Ms. Davina, had offered them everything: mansions, security, a life of unimaginable luxury. But Leo looked at Ben, at the small, cluttered house, at Chloe holding his hand, and he said, "This is my home. Ben saved us." In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about choice. With Elias Thorne's resources, they ensured the Carlyles would never bother them again. But Maya and Leo chose to stay. The money became a tool, not a master. Ben was able to expand his mechanic shop into a community garage, offering jobs and training to those down on their luck. Maya started an art foundation, helping survivors of domestic abuse find their voice and heal. They moved into a bigger house, yes, but one in the same neighborhood, with a big backyard where Leo and Chloe could play. The story ends not with a dramatic wealth display, but with a quiet family dinner. Ben, Maya, Leo, and Chloe, laughing around a table. The scars were still there, faint lines on their hearts, but they were reminders of their strength, not their pain. Ben looked around the table, his gaze meeting Maya's, and he knew. He hadn't just saved a woman and her son that stormy night. They had saved him right back. He had taken in two broken souls, unaware of the fortune they carried, and in doing so, he found a fortune far greater than any billionaire could offer. A family, rebuilt from the ground up with love, resilience, and the courage to open your door, and your heart, to a stranger in the rain. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that our greatest riches are often the people we choose to love, then do me a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs a dose of hope today, and subscribe for more stories that prove light can be found even on the darkest of nights. Thanks for watching.